Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at a brand new Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, Dachsbun. Dachsbun evolves from Fidough, which you can find just catching them in the wild. Dachsbun is a pure fairy type Pokemon. It is very similar bulk to Wigglytuff. For the moveset, it has Charm, Psychic Fangs, and your choice of Body Slam or Play Rough. To me, since you have Psychic Fangs, Body Slam is useless, so I am going to be running Play Rough for these battles. And today, I'm going to be testing it out in some open Great League games in the Go Battle League to see how it performs. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at Dachsbun in action in the Open Great League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a pretty nice lead, Galarian Corsola into Steelix. Steelix, of course, on Thunderfang this season. They are going to fire off a Psychic Fangs, and I'm very comfortable to let this through, as Psychic Fangs is not going to do damage, even though I have an absolutely trash IV Corsola. Corsola is going to return fire with the Nightshade. That's going to do some pretty solid damage, and it looks like my opponent is actually going to get fully farmed down since I was able to land that Nightshade. The Psychic Fangs is going to connect, but Corsola gets the farm down and exits with a ton of energy. In comes Malamar, and oh no, Malamar, do I have something for you? I have the Dachsbun lurking in the back, so now I can send in Dachsbun. These charms adding up quite a bit, and they must have had a Pokemon like Annihilate in the back, as they will immediately resign the match. We move to the next match, leading Galarian Corsola into a shiny Gastrodon, a very cool shiny. I'm farming up with the Corsola. I overfarm by one and I end up playing to a CMP tie that I do not win. I respect it at the last second, and I'm happy I did, as it is their nuke move. This is actually a Water Pulse Gastrodon. I go for the Nightshade. Nightshade is going to land. There's a switch out into a non-shadow regular Drapion, and Drapion will swiftly be answered with Diggersby. The non-shadow Drapion just does not have the same damage output in this matchup, whereas if you're the shadow Drapion, 3 Aqua Tails KO, but if you're the non-shadow, Diggersby can actually hang on. Here I will go for a bait with the Fire Punch. My opponent has a tough call to make, and they will end up shielding the bait. I know that I'm still not in a range where Aqua Tail will KO, and honestly I don't really need Switch since none of my remaining Pokemon take super effective damage from Mud Slap. So I'm able to grab the shield with Scorching Sands, send in the Corsola, and even though they're non-shadow, they are getting pretty close to a range where I can potentially knock out with the Power Gem. They go for the Crunch. They do not get the 30% chance at a debuff. Gonna try and pick up a KO with the Power Gem. Power Gem is gonna land. They can only make an Aqua Tail, but they try for the Crunch and they do not get there. In the back is going to be a Alolan Sandslash, and Sandslash is going to be taking some significant damage from Nightshade. That damage landing is so good for me, because obviously I have a Charmer in the back, so my charms are going to be resisted. They go for the Ice Punch. I don't want to give them any more farm, so now I can send in Dachsbun. Dachsbun, more than happy to tank any one move from the Sandslash, as of course Dachsbun does have some pretty good bulk to it, even though I have a very bad IV Dachsbun. Unfortunately, when it first released earlier this morning, it was weather boosted, so I was unable to get a good IV one. I will go back out later if the weather changes to try and get a high rank one. We pick up a pretty okay lead, Galarian Corsola versus the Shadow Dragonite. I do win the twos just by fully farming them down, but I will have to go down a shield to do so, as of course Shadow Dragonite does have a pacing advantage. But realistically, I do want to try and neutralize the Dragonite here, because Dragonite, not the most fun Pokemon for Diggersby to see. Diggersby can do okay there, but if shields are not up, then Superpower will inflict some serious damage. So I'm going to go for a double shield. Opponent is going to now save switch into Gastrodon, and I will respond with Dachsbun. I'm sending in Dachsbun here instead of the Diggersby because they're leading Dragonite. It's unlikely they're going to be weak to Charm in the back. They're able to land the Earth Power, and I will return fire with the Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs, not going to do a ton of damage, but it's the defense drop that we're after. Now I'll be able to send in Diggersby and look for a full farm down. Gastrodon does make it to one final charge attack. It is going to be the Earth Power. In the back, they have Shadow Kanto Marowak, and I should be in a pretty okay position here. I will fire off the Scorching Sands. A debuff would be nice, and we do get the debuff. I would have lived the Bone Club anyway, but this just gives me a lot more room to work with. Now, I can actually make it to another Scorching Sands. I do have a move on the Corsola, so this now becomes a guessing game. I'm going to wait the turn here, and they throw. That's huge. I do have a move on the Corsola. I just have to have that move land on the Marowak, and I win the game. I go for the move, but they catch it. And unfortunately, this is going to be a loss. Well played to my opponent. They get the catch that they had to have, and they're going to get to Mud Slap my Corsola all the way down and take the win. We move to the next game. Oh my goodness, the worst possible lead. Corsola into Diggersby. I safe switch into my own, but of course, because switching takes a turn, we're now desynced and my opponent can outpace. I'm praying that they don't get the Scorching Sands debuff. They do not, and they're going to bring in an Air/Mandibuzz. And this is just going from bad to worse. The switch timers are misaligned, so I'm definitely going to have to try and take advantage of the fact that these timers are not in sync whatsoever. My opponent does a pretty good job of cycle resetting me here, forcing me to throw on alignment or go over 100. I decide to go over 100, bank all that energy for later, and now send in Dachsbun. Dachsbun, of course, going to do very well against the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz can't really damage it very effectively. They're forced to throw again just to try and burn this switch clock. And finally, they're able to switch the Mandibuzz out, and in comes Shadow Feraligatr. Feraligatr, let's immediately debuff their defense with a Psychic Fangs, and look at these charms now. These charms are just deleting Feraligatr. Feraligatr in a split second from full health down to about 20% HP. In comes the Corsola. Corsola is going to get a full farm down. My opponent going to be sending back in the Diggersby, and when they do, I'm going to look to combo with a move on my own. I go for the bait, expecting they're going to shield, considering this is the move that would do the most. My opponent does actually end up no-shielding that. There's a bit of a visual error as they did queue up a switch into the Mandibuzz, but they are still very healthy. But now the issue is, since they no-shielded that move, they're still quite healthy. I go for the Fire Punch. I can't quite get the double Fire Punch, so I just need to go for the Scorching Sands. The Scorching Sands gets no-shielded, and that is a massive misplay by my opponent that may cost them the game. I think maybe they thought that I had double Fire Punch, so they thought, well, I have to tank one anyway, but I was just shy of that energy. And landing the Scorching Sands means that Corsola is actually going to win this endgame, even though all my moves are single or double resisted. I'm still not in Scorching Sands range. I will commit the shield just to try and use a shield at some point in this match. They do go for a bait, but realistically, at this point, it's not going to matter. I get to fire off the Power Gem. Power Gem is going to force their final shield. Even if they make a Scorching Sands, it will not KO, so I'm very happy to no shield here. Diggersby goes for a Fire Punch bait, and I will get to the Power Gem, and Galarian Corsola gets a little bit of revenge on its hardest counter in the entire game, knocking out Diggersby and securing the win. We move to the next match, Galarian Corsola versus Clodsire. We win the 1s and the 2s. Clodsire does win the 0s. So the play here as the Corsola is basically just going to be tanking a move, shielding a move, and then looking to try and exit with a lot of energy. My opponent will go for the Earthquake right away. More than happy to let this through, as Earthquake will do some pretty solid damage. Again, I do have a very bad Corsola. I'm trying to trade for a better one, but I've had just absolutely no luck in that department. So they get to go for another Earthquake. I will commit the shield, and I'm just looking to farm up to exit with a ton of energy. I will have switch advantage. I'm down a shield, so I may as well leave with energy to try and get that shield back. They're going to bring in Feraligatr, and that is a little bit scary. Feraligatr up energy, a terrifying Pokemon to deal with. And now I'm going to aggressively pivot into Diggersby. They bank a ton of energy and send in a Shadow Annihilate. I think that's actually a pretty big misplay by them to bank all that energy and switch in so late, because this is not enough for a close combat. I can no shield here. They are actually running Ice Punch, but the Ice Punch doesn't KO. I can knock them out with the Scorching Sands, and they have no ability to farm me down with the Feraligatr, which means they stored all that energy. They're going to have to throw some of it, and now I can just win the game with Dachsbun, because Dachsbun is very comfortably able to tank a Hydro Cannon. I'm just going to no shield here for science, so we get to see how much damage this does. Dachsbun, very comfortable absorbing that Hydro Cannon, will be able to get the full farm down, and the opponent will resign the match. Hopping into the next game, Galarian Corsola versus Jumpluff. So this is a pretty good lead for the Corsola. Opponent is going to save switch into Drapion. Bit of a slow switch out there by me. The opponent made a nice play of going for the Fairy Wind and then the switch to try and trigger me into overtapping, and they were able to do just that. Now this is the Shadow Drapion, so these Aqua Tails mean business. I will go for the bait. Drapions absolutely love to shield in this matchup, so as the Diggersby, you can oftentimes get away with a Fire Punch bait to help you catch back up with their absolutely absurd pacing. They try and trap me into a CMP tie, but I will not let that happen. I'm just always going to be over farming. I wait the turn to make sure they don't catch on Jumpluff, as that would be absolutely devastating, and the Scorching Sands is able to pick up the KO. In comes the Jump Pluff. I will get some nice chip damage with the Fire Punch, and this should just about put it into Power Gem range. They will have to throw energy, as they're not going to be able to farm me down, and so far we're in a very nice position. Of course, it will all come down to what that final Pokemon is. I send in the Corsola. It's Morpeko. Oh, trainer, I'm so sorry. Now I get to bring in Dachsbun, and look at this. Dachsbun just tanks an electric Aura Wheel. That hits for neutral damage. Of course, the type effectiveness chart is bugged when it comes to Morpeko, but we tank the electric Aura Wheel, get the farm down, and take the win. Corsola versus Talonflame. This matchup is a lot less good than one might think, as Talonflame does actually straight up win the 2-shield. Talonflame is going to farm past their move, so I will go for a Nightshade bait. The Nightshade bait is successful. They're at 100, so I'm just going to let this go. They have to Brave Bird to KO me here. They go for a Fly. Fly will not be enough. They're going to send in Morpeko. I bank a Power Gem, and I'm going to send in Diggersby. But by switching in so late, they can now make a Psychic Fangs into an Aura Wheel on the CMP tie to my Scorching Sands. So I'm actually going to commit a shield in this matchup, which never feels good to do, but an Aura Wheel against my -1 defense would just do way too much damage. I can go for 3 quick attacks and the Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands is going to pick up the knockout. In the back, they have Annihilate, and Annihilate will immediately be met with yet another Scorching Sands. One thing I do like about this particular team construction, it's very strong into Annihilate. Annihilate has to go for an Ice Punch or a close combat here. Rage Fist will not KO. They go for the Ice Punch, and now I can send in Dachsbun. Dachsbun is able to get that farm down. The opponent is going to concede the match. Corsola versus Goodra. This is a very nice lead for the Corsola, as Corsola just really doesn't take any damage from the non-same type attack bonus charge attacks of the Goodra. Goodra farming up a ton of energy, maybe trying to bluff a Draco Meteor. Draco Meteor is run so uncommonly in the Great League that if they have it, I am willing to just get KO'd here. If you have the Draco Meteor, please do throw it. They go for the Aqua Tail. That's not going to KO. They try and make it to a Thunder Punch, but they're unable to get there. In comes Shadow Drapion. Drapion will immediately be met with the Power Gem. And this Power Gem, if it lands, which it does very nice damage. This Drapion is incredibly low. Drapion over farming to the max and playing to the CMP tide to deny the Nightshade that I was able to reach. But just like that, Corsola has KO'd 1 3/4 Pokemon by themselves. In comes Talonflame. This is going to be difficult. I brought the Dachsbun in, anticipating the fact that since they led Goodra, they would not be weak to Charm in the back, and their Flame Charge. Them being Flame Charge actually might be my lose con here. But if I can get a Scorching Sands debuff, I could be right back in the game. Unfortunately, that debuff does not come through. And that means that I'm actually now in danger of potentially getting KO'd here. I will be firing off Scorching Sands number 2. They are now 2 stages boosted, and I'm going to need to send in Dachsbun and try and make a move. In comes Dachsbun. Dachsbun firing off the Psychic Fangs. The next Charm would not have knocked out, so I go for the Psychic Fangs. They're going to shield. They're going to try and get off 2 moves here, but their problem is they're now debuffed due to the Psychic Fangs. The Charm will KO. I just have to survive an Aqua Tail and 3 Poison Stings, and I'll win. Come on, Dachsbun. Aqua Tail connects. I faint to the second, and having a bad IV Dachsbun cost me the win. If I have a better IV, a non-weather boosted one, I win that game. But unfortunately, that's the best I could find, and it actually cost me a win. Great lead in the next match, leading Corsola into Annihilate. Opponent safe switches into Feraligatr, and I will respond with the Diggersby. Diggersby, I'm very happy to let one move through here. If I shield, my opponent can definitely be tempted just to fully sacrifice the Feraligatr and go for insane farm on Annihilate. But by no shielding, it actually entices them to try and play out this matchup, which is definitely going to be my goal. They will fire off the Hydro Cannon. I'm going to commit the shield, and now I'm not going to bait. I am going to fire off the Scorching Sands right before they make their 3rd Hydro, and that's going to pick up the KO. For my opponent, this energy seems worthwhile, because of course Rage Fist will do quite a bit of damage to Corsola, but Rage Fist is not going to be doing anything to Dachsbun. Dachsbun is a pure Fairy type, so I can send in Dachsbun. In the back, they have a Dugong. Oh no, they were ABA weak to Galarian Corsola, and there's just no way for them to win the game at this point. They go for the Icy Wind. At that point, yeah, they realize writing's on the wall in this one, so they will concede the match. We move to the next game, leading into Clodsire. Opponent safe switches into a Shadow Pidgeot. Oh my goodness, the spice. Shadow Pidgeot, unreal. I have no checks to this on my team. I'm going to farm up, switch into the Diggersby to catch a move, hoping it's the Aerial Ace, and it is. Them not having Feather Dance is incredibly good for me. And now they do have enough for a Brave Bird. Shadow Brave Bird is no joke, so I will commit the shield, and it is going to be the Brave Bird. Before they're able to switch out, their timer will be up shortly. They're going to have to commit a shield as I go for the Fire Punch. Their clock will be up now, so they are able to save it. Send in Mandibuzz. And for Mandibuzz, I'm just going to throw the Fire Punch to burn my switch clock, and then it's Dachsbun time. Dachsbun is going to get a very nice farm down here of my opponent, and I'm hoping against hope that I'll finally get to throw Play Rough on this thing. Because Play Rough does help Dachsbun pick up a few clutch matchups in the zeros, but I haven't really had zero shield matchups yet. They send in the Clodsire, so of course, not going to be throwing a Play Rough here. Just going to go for these super effective Psychic Fangs. And these Psychic Fangs do add up onto the Clodsire, and that's quite nice considering that you are a pure fairy type. I go for Psychic Fangs number 2. They're now below half HP. I can send in the Corsola, and their defense is at -2. These Astonishes are going to start shredding through their defense here. The opponent will get their final move shielded, and they realize there's just not a win con, so they will concede the match. All in all, I think that Dachsbun is a very, very good Pokemon for the Open Great League. I know PvPoke recommends Body Slam plus Psychic Fangs. Realistically, you're never going to be throwing Body Slam basically ever as the Dachsbun, so I do think Play Rough, just in case you end up in a shields down situation, even though it's expensive, is probably going to end up being the preferred move in the long run. I do think that Wigglytuff is probably still by a narrow margin the best charmer, but it's basically a 1A, 1B type situation, where Wigglytuff, due to its normal subtyping, can offer some extra advantages, like being able to shut down Feraligatr a bit more effectively, but that also means that it takes neutral from fighting, whereas Dachsbun is able to shut down fighters better. But this is very easily going to be a meta Pokemon in the Open Great League, and it's a very solid Pokemon to use if you really do not want people to succeed when they are using Annihilate. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.